In this episode, the drama within the Su family escalates. Elder Su, Chengfeng, washes his hands of all blame. Zinn is under tremendous pressure. On the one side he lost his wife, and on the other he feels abandoned by his father, shouldering the blame for the tragedy in Japan. Dear viewers, please follow the storyline from chapters 2231 to 2250. Thank you.
Chapter 2231. Hearing the old man's arrangement, Zinn almost puked out a mouthful of dark blood. Obviously it was the old man who did a lot of FC King planning and did a lot of things, but in the end, I am supposed to go to Australia to avoid the limelight. What the hell is this? Thinking of this, he hurriedly said, Dad, you don't want me to appear in the public view for the time being. I accept it completely, but there is no need to send me to Australia. There are still a lot of things in the group, and I have to go to Leona. Find a way to mediate, to save my marriage. Elder Su said coldly, if you stay here, the paparazzi will keep watching your every move, and don't forget, now I don't know how many families are waiting to take the opportunity to drink our blood and eat our meat, getting you will be their breakthrough point. So, in my opinion, you still need to go to Australia to avoid it. Don't we have a seaside villa in Queensland? Just go there and relax. I will help you sort out the things here. Zinn almost collapsed. He murmured angrily in his heart, sending me to Australia at this crucial time. It is clear that I can be used as a scapegoat to face all the bullets. If I don't go, this old man will be the culprit in the eyes of the outside world. He is the one who betrayed his granddaughter. If I run away, I don't know how this group of people will play tricks behind my back. Moreover, I am now the executive vice chairman and the second in command of the group. If I leave, who will take my job? Could it be Shoude? If Shoude, this be it starred takes my job, wait until I come back. When the time came, the executive vice chairman will belong to him, so would I be emptied. Just as Zinn tried his brains to decline the arrangement of the father, Chengfeng directly said, Shoude, you will help your brother arrange the plane. Let him set off tonight. His work in the group will be determined in the future. You take care of it for the time being. When Shoude heard this, his heart was so excited that he almost cheered it loud. However, he still suppressed the excitement in his heart, and respectfully said, Don't worry, Dad, I will arrange the plane. Zinn begged, Dad, even if you let me go, please give me 2 days, at least let me have a good chat with Leona. Chengfeng waved his hand, there is nothing to talk about. Based on what I know about Leona, she can't remarry you, so you might as well cut the mess and divorce her. Zinn's voice was almost crying. If you really have to go, there will be too much delay. Not only the wife's business but also the heir status of the group is in the doldrums. He also wanted to find out Ruoli's whereabouts. After that, it's his own flesh and blood. Now it's hard to tell, he always has to find a way to find out. What if she is still alive? If he finds her out on his own, then he can also find a way to secretly arrange a destination for her, let her go to a certain corner of the world, and live incognito peacefully. But if someone else in the Su family finds her, or the Japanese find her, then she will definitely die. Seeing that he was unwilling to agree, Chengfeng immediately reprimanded, What are you thinking? Won't you even abide by my arrangement? Upon hearing this, Zinn immediately realized that he had no room for mediation. In order not to completely offend the old man, he could only gently nod his head and said, Okay Dad, I will listen to you, tonight I'll go. Chengfeng nodded in satisfaction and waved his hand. Okay, go back and clean up, say goodbye to Zhufei and Jiu, and leave in an hour. Just when Zinn was called away by the housekeeper, Zhufei and Jiu were still in their study, looking at the computer screen. After their mother, Leona, left, she drove back to her family's home and called the children. On the phone, Leona told them about Ruoli very calmly. Both Zhufei and Jiu were shocked by the news. I am afraid that for any young man in his 20s, it is difficult to accept this reality immediately when he suddenly hears that his father actually has an illegitimate daughter. Especially Jiu. Like her mother Leona, she has a serious emotional sense of chastity. Although she has never been in a relationship so far, if such a thing happens to her, she will definitely divorce her husband resolutely like her mother did, without any hesitation. Therefore, although she will find it difficult to accept this reality for a while, she unconditionally supports all her mother's decisions. At this point, Zhufei is more or less machismo. He felt that a man like his father was almost unlikely to be loyal to marriage for a lifetime. Men who are wealthy to the extreme seldom are satisfied with only one heterosexual partner, so it is actually normal to get into bed with women outside. After all, he grew up in the upper-class circle, and in this circle, he has seen many men on occasions. There are illegitimate children and illegitimate daughters, and it's a common practice in this circle. The most powerful person he has ever seen is a billionaire who engages in using the internet. He found a lot of women and gave birth to a lot of children with them, and showed that off on social networking sites. So, in contrast, if dad had just had a one-night stand with his bodyguard and gave birth to a daughter, Zhufei felt that dad was already in this circle, relatively low-key and family-oriented. In fact, women in this circle have long been used to such things. Of course, he did not say this to his mother and sister, because he understands their characters. If he speaks his mind this time, he is afraid that they will scold him. Xiu was very angry inside. She felt the same for her mother at this time. If she met such a husband, she would definitely leave him without hesitation. So she said to Leona with difficulty covering her anger on the phone, "Mom, I support. You divorced dad. He made this kind of mistake and kept it hidden for so long. This incident is absolutely unforgivable. When I see him, I must ask him face to face." Leona is not as passionate as her group but simply said indifferently, "Xiu, I told you this because you and your brother are both grown-ups. You have the right to know these things, but this is a matter between us. You don't need to confront your dad again because of this. In addition, after I divorced your dad, you two can choose to continue living in Sus house. You can also choose to live in your grandmother's house, or you can go out and live by yourself. Mom has no objection. In the future, if there is any family gathering at Grandpa's or Grandpa's house, you should all participate as usual, but your father and I will no longer attend each other's family meetings, and everything else will remain the same." Xiu said unwillingly, "Mom, why do you have to confront the woman who gave birth to her for this matter? To seduce someone else's husband and have the face to give birth to a child, this woman is too much." "No need," Leona said calmly. "She is also a poor person. I have nothing to blame her, and you shouldn't go to her to confront her. Feelings are all personal choices, and there is no right or wrong." Xiu asked with a choked voice, "Mom, what are your plans next?" Leona smiled and said, "I have no plans. When your dad comprehends this fully, he will divorce quickly. If he takes time, I will divorce and go out to relax. If he doesn't respond for a while, then I won't spend time with him, go out first." Xiu hurriedly said, "Mom, where do you want to go to?" "Relax." Leona smiled slightly and said two words, "Orus Hill." Leona's idea of going to Orus Hill has been buried in her heart for nearly 2 decades. Since the death of Changying and his wife, she wanted to go to Orus Hill to take a look. After that, that was the place where Changying spent his last days. As a woman who has loved him for most of her life, she especially hopes to go to Orus Hill for a walk, see, and live for a while, trying to find traces of Changying's existence in Orus Hill. However, as a woman who has been married, as a married woman, her moral values have always reminded her that she should not go to Orus Hill because that is indeed unfair to her husband. Going quietly to Wade's grave to pay respect to Changying is already what Leona feels most guilty about Zinn in her heart. If she goes to Orus Hill again, it would have been really inappropriate. But now, she has no moral constraints. Zinn's mind derailed first and he had broken the gentleman agreement between her and himself. In that case, she no longer has to be bound by any reason. It is time to realize her wish to visit Orus Hill. When Xiu heard her mother said that she was going to Orus Hill, she immediately asked happily, "Mom, brother and I are just planning to go to Orus Hill. Let's go together." Leona asked curiously, "What are you going to do in Orus Hill? Why didn't you listen to me?" Zhufei hurriedly said, "Mom, I am going to Orus Hill because of the company's business needs. It happens to say that I will take Xiu around. If you are also coming, then I will arrange a plane and hotel reservation." Leona smiled and said, "You don't need to arrange a hotel. Your grandfather has an old house in Orus Hill. It has been taken care of for these years. Let's live there when we go." Xiu asked in surprise, "Mom, Grandpa still has a house in Orus Hill. Why have I never heard of it?" Leona smiled and said, your dad is a little apprehensive about Orus Hill, so I haven't taken you to Orus Hill for so many years, so naturally you don't know about the house. Having said that, Leona introduced, your grandfather's ancient house in Orus Hill is very impressive. It is next to the presidential palace. That house has existed since ancient times, it survived through successive dynasties and until the country became the Republic of China. Over the years, all the people who lived there were big figures. In the 1970s, your grandfather spent a lot of money to buy it, and occasionally he and your grandma lived there for a few days. When Zhufei heard that his father was a little apprehensive about Orus Hill, he instantly remembered the past. He had heard of some things back then, knowing that Changying, his mother's favorite back then, died in Orus Hill. Therefore, his heart suddenly became a little tangled. At this time, Shiao on the side said without hesitation, Mom, why don't you go to Grandpa's house to have a good rest tonight, let's go to Orus Hill early tomorrow morning. Leona said, okay, you two should not talk to your dad about me and him. This is a matter between the two of us. No matter what, it will only affect the relationship between me and him, me and you, or him. You two must not be affected in any way, understand? Zhufei and Shiao returned in unison, understood Mom. Leona said with satisfaction, okay, I'm at your grandmother's house, so I'll spend some time here. Shiao hurriedly said, Mom, then you have a good rest tonight, I will call you tomorrow morning. It is good. Shiao hung up the phone, and Zhufei on the side said with some worry, Shiao, Dad has been a little worried about Orus Hill. If we go to Orus Hill with Mom at this time, will he be very angry? Shiao snorted coldly, what? About getting angry? He had an illegitimate daughter outside, and he took her home grandiosely and put her under the eyes of our family. How could he not think that we would have a family of 3? Are you angry? After a pause, Shiao said angrily, seriously, I still want to confront him face to face. We should go to Orus Hill, the 3 of us, to give him a signal. To let him know that all this was his fault. Zhufei said awkwardly, hurt, this kind of thing, how can we as children say something? As he was talking, Zhufei continued, there are so many top rich people in this world. Some of these people don't indulge in extramarital affairs. Dad was just confused at that time. Among these people, he is still can be considered to be a very good one. Shiao asked with a very serious expression, how can you say that? Can a rich person be disloyal to marriage? Zhufei hurriedly said, oh, I didn't mean that. I just said that I don't think our dad's plot is very bad. If he admits his mistakes and regrets sincerely, he can be forgiven. Mom will resolutely follow for a divorce, is it a bit ill-considered? After all, the relationship between them as husband and wife has been for more than 20 years, plus we 2 children, can't we give our dad a chance? Shiao said earnestly, you have a typical SC*MBAG thinking. When it gets bigger, the 3 views are not right. I ask you, if you get married in the future and your wife cheats on your back, can you forgive her? Zhufei said awkwardly, it's not like that. After all, men cheating and women cheating, it is not the same thing. Why isn't it the same thing? Shiao said with some irritation, do you feel that there is a matter of inferiority between men and women? A man can be forgiven if a man cheats, but a woman can't be. Zhufei, I just realized for the first time in so many years, that you are so politically incorrect. I tell you, if you make this kind of mistake in the future, even if your wife forgives you, I won't forgive you. Then I will call you a SC*MBAG. Zhufei was scolded by Shiao, and said with an embarrassing expression, oh my aunt, your mouth is too bad, I didn't do anything, why would you become a SC*MBAG? Shiao said coldly, this kind of thinking is a typical SC*MBAG thinking. I think it's great to have 2 bags of money, so you can mess around outside. If you really want to do this, then you don't want to pursue Sarah. After that, Sarah is also a lady of everybody. Your SC*MBAG thinking is simply not worthy of her. I suggest you, from the entertainment industry, find a female celebrity who is all about money and wants to marry a rich family for power and status. At that time, you will make a good impression with others in advance. You give her enough money and provide her with a good enough life, and she must not interfere with your other affairs, such as being outside with any woman. A win-win for everyone. When Jufei heard this, his face was gloomy, and said, "Am I wrong?" After speaking, he quickly turned away from the subject and said, "By the way, I will arrange the plane soon and we will fly to Orus Hill together tomorrow morning." Xiao saw that he wanted to change the subject and immediately said aggressively, "Jufei. Respecting women and respecting your partner is a compulsory course and a basic moral principle for every man. If you become a SC*MBAG in the future, I will never call you my brother." Chapter 2235. This night, the entire Eastcliff was shaken. The Su family caused a catastrophe in Japan and was named and targeted by the Japanese National Security Agency, which dealt a huge blow to the reputation and influence of the Su family. At the same time, other Eastcliff families, headed by the Wade family, also started gearing up. The Su family now has lost a large number of masters and offended the overseas investors. In the future, the Su family will have to tighten up and behave like a principled family. Meanwhile, other families have the opportunity to cannibalize the power of the Su family. Zongquan was particularly excited about this. He felt that this was God's blessing. Wade's second spring is finally coming. So he summoned all his children except Cynthia and immediately formulated a 3-year plan. From now on, in the next 3 years, the Wade family will attack the Su family in an all-round way like the Su family organized the Anti-Leaf Alliance back then. Not only must we pull the Su family down from the altar, but we must also take our own strength to the next level, leave the Su family far behind, and regain the title of the nation's #1 family. However, Mr. Wade did not immediately start to do it but chose the day of the declaration of war at this year's Ancestors' Remembrance Ceremony. He couldn't hide his excitement and said to all his children, "This time the ancestor worship ceremony will bring the Wade family branches across the country to Yelling Mountain. At that time, I will use the most solemn ancestor worship ceremony to make all Wade's progeny realize that the Wade family is a large family with an orderly inheritance, a super family that was once brilliant. Let all the members bring the highest honor. By then, it will be an unprecedented moment of unity among the Wade family. By then, at the ancestor worship ceremony, on the grounds below the mountain, I will order all the family members to work together to defeat the Su family, and ask the Su family to severely punish Zinn, the leader of the Anti-Leaf Alliance. The moment when the Wade family is up and down with the same enemy, it is the best time for us to fully fight the Su family." When the eldest child Jacob Wade heard this, he was the most excited, and said with vigor in his voice, "Dad. At that time, we will also have an anti-Su alliance. We must knock down the assets of the Su family by half. Let them directly fall out." The sequence of the 3 major families of Eastcliff. Elder Wade sneered, "In Eastcliff, there are many families that have hatred against the Su family. Among them, we have the deepest hatred, followed by the Gu family. If we raise the banner of dealing with the Su family, the Gu family will definitely follow." Quote, "The most important thing now is to let Charlie Wade and Sarah from the Gu family get married soon. Once the 2 of them get married, the Gu family will definitely help the Wade family without hesitation. At that time, the Su family will be unable to parry and let us slaughter them at will." Jacob Wade asked, "Dad, didn't you still say before if you want Charlie to try, can you get Xiao from the Su family?" Elder Wade waved his hand and chuckled coldly, "I thought that the Su family was overwhelming us in all aspects after all. We just couldn't beat them, so it's better to change your mind and let Charlie pursue that Xiao." But who would have thought that the Su family would encounter Waterloo one after another in Japan? Their vitality is now severely injured. We can go directly to a full-scale war with them, and how can we marry their girl with Charlie? Speaking of this, Old Man Wade laughed a few times and said loudly, "Ha ha ha, God opened your eyes. God opened your eyes." The old Sanye Changying on the side asked, "Dad, what if Charlie doesn't want to marry Gu's girl?" Elder Wade smiled unpredictably, "Charlie will also come to the ancestor worship ceremony. At that time, I will announce the plan of revenge against the Su family in front of all the children of the family, and then announce Charlie and Gu's union as a way to strengthen our overall power in order to slam the Su family underfoot. He is part of this family, he knows how they have inflicted wounds upon us, I believe he will not refuse." Chapter 2236. Eastcliff, Gu's family. Before Leona got home, her parents and brothers and sisters knew about the scandal in the Su family, and they also knew that Zinn had an illegitimate daughter outside. Therefore, when she hadn't come back, the other brothers and sisters of the Du family rushed back one after another at the call of Mr. Du. Mrs. Du and Mrs. Du were very much aware of Leona's temperament. They knew that as long as Leona knew about this, she would definitely return to her family's home immediately. So they didn't call Leona or let others call Leona. They gathered together and waited for her to return. When Leona's car drove into the Du's mansion, her parents and several siblings greeted her one after another. Leona saw the whole family appear in front of her, and she was immediately moved to no avail. Unlike other business families, the Du family has held high positions for generations, so money has never been something worth mentioning to the Du family. Because they don't care about money, there is no intrigue between Du's brothers and sisters. Among the descendants of the Du family, some have inherited the mantle of Mr. Du in the system and have excellent career prospects. Some are devoted to studying their own majors in the top universities or scientific research institutes. Some people rarely hear about it. Although the Confucian merchants have a net worth of hundreds of billions, they never show off. As for Leona and several of her sisters, they all have their own emotional destinations. Under the education of Mrs. Du from a young age, the women of the Du family did not have a strong sense of professionalism. On the contrary, all of them were experts in family management, and each of them had the fine virtues of a traditional woman. As soon as Leona got off the car, Mrs. Du stepped forward, holding her hand distressingly, and whispered, "Leona, you are wronged." Leona smiled slightly and said, "Mom, don't say that, I don't feel wronged at all." Old Man Du on the side said, "Leona, our family hasn't gotten together for some time. I'll let someone burn a charcoal fire. Later, we will have a copper pot cuisine with the family." One of the favorite delicacies of the older generations of Eastcliff people is copper pot cuisine. Different from hot pots in other places with induction cookers or gas stoves, the older Eastcliff people must use copper pots with hollow interiors and charcoal to cook meat in copper pots. This is also the way to eat from the palace. In the severe cold of Eastcliff in winter, it is a wonderful treat to eat elite cuisine while guarding the copper pot. The 5 generations of Du's family were all native Eastcliff people, and naturally, they loved this copper pot cuisine. It's just that these years, the children have their own families, and each family is in a different situation. Although everyone often comes back to visit the elderly, it is really not easy to get together. Therefore, the old man immediately became addicted, thinking about the family's enjoyment and a good meal. Otherwise, if everyone came to comfort Leona, it might be counterproductive. Sure enough, when the children heard that they were going to eat copper pot cuisine, they didn't care that it was almost late at night, they were all excited. Liona, the 6th oldest, was Leona's little sister. She immediately stepped forward with excitement and took Leona's arm, and smiled and said, "Second sister, I just have been idle these days. I want to stay at my parents' house. How many days will my sister stay with me?" Leona smiled and said, "Tonight is okay. But tomorrow is not. I want to go to Orus Hill tomorrow." "What?" Everyone looked at Leona in surprise. The old man Elijah Du asked, "Leona, do you go to Orus Hill to grow a tassel?" Leona checked her head and said frankly, "Yes, Dad, I always wanted to go before, but I couldn't help it. Now I don't have any restrictions, so I want to go there soon, but I have a wish." Elijah looked a bit lonely and said sincerely, "Changying. Changying. I failed to make Changying my son-in-law. It's the biggest regret of my life." Elijah sighed, making the expressions of everyone at the scene somewhat regretful. Mrs. Du hurriedly pinched his waist, and whispered, "You guys, you really don't open the old pot or lift the one we have just prepared." Saying this, she hurried the kids to go in and get ready to eat. Elijah sighed, "Oh, Leona is so big. She sees a lot of things better than us. What I say is also from my heart, there is no need to be cautious about norms." Leona nodded and said seriously, "Mom, I'm really not angry or uncomfortable about this, at least this time, so you don't need to be too sensitive." Old Mrs. Du looked surprised. "Leona, Zinn has been hiding it from you for so many years, are you not angry at all?" Leona said earnestly, "I am not angry, but feel relieved." Elijah smiled and said, "Good thing. It is good to be free. To be honest, for so many years, Dad has always felt that you are unhappy. Now that you can come out, Dad is happy for you. Leona nodded seriously and smiled slightly. Thank you, Dad. Elijah laughed and beckoned hurriedly. Walk around, eat elite cuisine. Your 3 brothers will accompany me for 2 drinks for a while. As the son of Du's family, Renal nodded without hesitation and said, Good Dad. Our 3 brothers will accompany you for a few drinks tonight. Lionapping, Leona's sister Lionapping, also said with a busy smile, Dad, is there any red wine at home? We 3 sisters will also accompany you to drink some. The 6th child Lioname smiled and said, That's great, Dad, my eldest sister, and my 2nd sister will accompany you. Elijah was immediately happy and smiled heartily. Okay. Your 3 sisters did not return on New Year's Eve, so we will treat it as the New Year today. Lioname hurriedly said, Dad, we want to come with you during the Chinese New Year, but you can't let anything. Elijah said seriously, You are married to the Shen family and you are the daughter-in-law of the Shen family. You should spend the New Year with your in-laws. The same is true for your 2 sisters. This is the rule. All 3 of your brothers will accompany me and your mother for the New Year. If your 3 sisters also come, they will say that the old man Du is ignorant and only thinks about his own home. Lioname hurriedly said, I know Dad, I'll talk to Salong Shen, and I'll be back with you next New Year's Eve. Elijah smiled and said, Let's talk about it then. Look at Wilson Shen's meaning, if he is unwilling, don't force it. Afterward, Du's 3 sons and 3 daughters strolled to the dining room with a pair of elderly people. In the dining room at this time, the chef at home has put a beautiful brass pot on the table. In the middle of the pot, there is a green flame of charcoal, and a pot of clear soup is boiled outside. The table is already full of fresh cuts, all kinds of lamb. Eastcliff people are very particular about eating mutton. Basically, they don't eat mutton rolls prepared by machines in hot pot restaurants. They eat pure and fresh hand-cut mutton. Hand-cut mutton is very particular. According to different parts, mutton has various names, such as upper brain meat, tenderloin, large 3-pronged, small 3-pronged, and cucumber strips. Different meats have different cutting methods, different sizes, and thicknesses, and there are many sayings. The Du family seldom show off their wealth and live a life of the extravagant and wasteful elite, but they are very particular people. They are not about pomp and price, but about taste and essence. Take food as an example, the Du family's mouths are more than one. The fried oil cake at the entrance will not be greasy for a family for 10 years, but once they change to poorer craftsmanship, even if the difference is minimal, they will find it difficult to swallow. Mr. Du has no bad habits all his life, he just loves to smoke. He especially likes to smoke a cigarette produced by a cigarette factory in southern Yunnan. After the old man smoked for 20 years, the cigarette factory's technology and production line improved, the formula was upgraded, and the cigarette paper and filter material were changed. Everyone felt that the improved product was more exquisite and higher grade than before, and the taste was not much worse, but Mr. Du just felt that the taste was not right and couldn't adapt. Later, because of this, he even fell ill. When the old man's subordinates heard that the old man was sick and hospitalized, they made a special trip to visit him. When they asked about the cause, they learned that the old man turned out to be suffering from the taste of the cigarettes he had smoked for 20 years, so they simply made a phone call and asked the cigarette factory to reopen the old production line that had been dismantled and ready to be scrapped, just for the old man. People who produce the original cigarettes can be regarded as curing the old man's heart disease. However, the old man also felt guilty for using the privilege. He specifically asked his second son, Leona, to run to the cigarette factory, verified all the costs of reopening the cigarette factory's production line, and then paid for it all out of his own pocket. This is regarded as accepting the privilege with peace of mind. In fact, the children of the Du family have inherited the father's exquisiteness. The more exquisite, the more refined you live. Therefore, the family not only has high academic qualifications and strong abilities but also inherits the traditional virtues of gentleness, courtesy, frugality, and concession. At this time, the Du family was sitting around the table, eating the elite cuisine and drinking wine. The 8 of them had a lively chat, and they all seemed to be in a very good mood. At first, everyone was worried that Leona's mood would be lower. Unexpectedly, Leona's whole state is extremely relaxed and comfortable. Everyone around here is close relatives, and they can see that her ease and comfort is not the result of the performance, so they are completely relieved. The old couple is in a particularly good mood. In the past few years, the 6 children have started a family one after another. No matter which one they look at individually, they all have a very good, even impeccable, but they have always loved Leona. This is mainly because they have always known that Leona has loved Changying for so many years to no avail. Later, after Changying's wedding, she decided to marry Zinn, which was really impulsive and outrageous. The night before Leona's marriage, she held the old lady and cried all night, while her sister Lionapping and Lioname were with them, and they felt distressed. At that time, Leona wanted to persuade her to repent of her marriage because she felt sorry for her, but she did not agree with her life and death. After so many years of marriage, although Zinn is very fond of Leona, only Leona's family can tell that she has always been unhappy. Especially after Changying's accidental death, she became even more taciturn, and even started to eat less and lost interest in religious ceremonies, and became a commoner at home. But now, everyone can see that Leona is really relieved. The old man Elijah remembered that Leona was going to Orus Hill, so he asked, "Leona, how long do you plan to stay in Orus Hill this time?" Leona thought for a while and said, "Dad, how long will I stay?" "I don't know now, just stay and see." Elijah asked again, "Who will accompany you?" Leona said, "Jufei and Jiu are with me." Elijah nodded. "The old house in Orus Hill has been very well maintained. You have not been there for many years. You can live there for a few days. If there is nothing wrong with your mother, I will also go to Orus Hill in 2 days. In a few days, Eastcliff will be too dry in winter, and your mother had said that she wanted to go to Zhongyang for a few days." When the entire Du family was enjoying themselves, Zinn had simply packed his luggage and was ready to leave for Australia. What happened this time made him very passive, and the old man made it clear that he temporarily avoid the limelight, and he could only do it honestly. Before leaving, he called Jufei and asked, "Jufei, you and your sister, come to my study." Jufei was so busy that he said, "Okay Dad, we'll come over." After speaking, he hung up the phone and said to Jiu, "Jiu, Dad wants us in the study." Jiu said angrily, "Go by yourself, I don't want to see him." Jiu would still find it difficult to accept that her father betrayed her mother and had an illegitimate daughter who was only 1 year younger than herself, so she was very reluctant to see Zinn at this time. Jufei helplessly persuades, "Jiu, in matters between parents, we are children, so we should not participate too much. You can't cut off your dad because of the small mistakes made more than 20 years ago." Father-daughter relationship. Jiu said seriously, "I don't want to sever the relationship with him, but I don't want to see him now. Go and see him yourself." Jufei asked awkwardly, "Then I will see Dad later. If Dad asks you, what would I say?" Jiu blurted out without hesitation, "Then tell him directly, I don't want to see him now." Seeing that Jiu was not joking, Jufei sighed helplessly and said, "Well, I am going then." Immediately, Jufei stood up and stepped out of Jiu's study. The Su family villa covers a huge area, and the whole is more like a castle. Although the family lives together, they live in different areas of the villa. Jufei went downstairs to his father Zinn's study. After knocking on the door and entering, he saw Zinn with a sad face and smoke, as if he was 10 years old suddenly. Seeing Jufei coming in, Zinn asked in surprise, "Where is your sister?" Jufei said awkwardly, "Jiu is a bit. Zinn gave a wry smile and asked, "Jiu must be very angry with me, right?" Jufei sneered and said, "She is a comparison axis. In fact, this kind of thing should have been taken care of." Zinn sighed and said, "Hey, after that, I failed your mother and your brother and sister." Jufei hurriedly said, "Dad, don't say that. Isn't it saying that there is nothing right or wrong about feelings, and you don't have to blame yourself too much?" Zinn waved his hand. "There is nothing right or wrong about who you like and who you don't like, but after getting married, you really have to be responsible for your marriage and your spouse. This is because I did not do it right. Knowing that Leona is angry with me is justified." After speaking, he said again, "Jufei, I call you here, mainly to tell you something. Your grandfather asked me to go to Australia to avoid the limelight. I will leave tonight. I may not be able to come back in a short time." "Going to Australia?" Jufei asked in surprise. "Dad, why did Grandpa ask you to go to Australia at this time? Why are you leaving so hastily?" Even if this is a big mess, there is no need to go to Australia, right? Quote. Zinn smiled bitterly. This incident is a scandal between me and your grandfather. Your grandfather asked me to go to Australia. Naturally, he regarded me as the person who was behind the scenes and also asked me to divert the media attention. After I leave, they will definitely leak the news that I ran overnight to Australia, and the media will definitely focus their energy on me. Zhufei said angrily, Dad. Grandpa did too much in this matter, right? He betrayed Ruoli. If it is really broken, he is an old fox who can betray his granddaughter. He now quickly found a way to solve the immediate crisis, but also to throw you out as a target. This is not justified. Zinn waved his hand and said seriously, such words, if you talk about it here, don't repeat them when you leave this room. Your grandpa's temperament is like. In his eyes, personal interests must be taken care of first in everything. In the face of personal interests, anything can be sacrificed. He can sell Ruoli to the self-defense force today. Who knows if he will sell one of us to a certain interest group tomorrow. So when you are by his side, remember the words, companion with you, like a tiger. Quote. Zhufei nodded gently. Zinn said, by the way, Zhufei, after I am gone, during this period of time, you and Jiu will accompany your mother, and also help me apologize to her, say a few more good things, and have to trouble you by the way. Help me pay more attention to your mother, see what she does, where she goes, who she meets, and let me know. After speaking, he quickly explained, don't think too much, I don't mean to let you help me monitor your mother. The main reason is that I want to try to save my marriage with your mother, so I have to ask you to help. Zhufei nodded. Dad, I understand, don't worry. After finishing speaking, he hurriedly said, by the way, Mom said that she will go to Orus Hill tomorrow, and Jiu and I will also go. To Orus Hill? Zinn asked, what is your mother going to Orus Hill for? Zhufei hesitated and said, maybe Mom wants to relax, I don't know the details. Zinn's expression was very ugly. He knew very well why Leona wants to go to Orus Hill. He gritted his teeth and thought to himself, Orus Hill is where Changying died back then. She has been lingering for Changying over the years. The idea of going to Orus Hill definitely doesn't exist for 1 or 2 days. Here just said to divorce me, then she is going to Orus Hill immediately. Leona, you are too much. In your eyes, do you have a little respect for me? Today, it just broke out that I had an illegitimate daughter out of marriage. Tomorrow Leona will go to Orus Hill to Miss Changying. If this becomes known, where will I put my old face? Thinking of this, Zinn hated her very much. Zhufei saw that Zinn's expression was very ugly. Knowing that he had said something wrong, Zhufei hurriedly changed the subject. When will you leave, Dad? I'll see you off. Zinn forcibly calmed his mind, retracted his thoughts, and said to Zhufei, I have to set off in 10 minutes. This time I was arranged by your grandfather to go to Australia. Your second uncle is often behind the scenes. I am not here. You and Jiu must be careful of him. Second uncle. Zhufei frowned and asked, he always obeyed you, why did he get into trouble with you at this time? Zinn sneered, since ancient times, no matter how many princes the emperor has, he will only choose a prince to succeed the grand prince. In order for the prince to succeed, he will greatly weaken the strength of other sons and ensure that they are unable to rebel. Your second uncle wants to be the prince, naturally, he will do his best to deal with me. Zhufei gritted his teeth. The second uncle is polite to you and us on weekdays, and welcomes us with a smile. I didn't expect that this time would suddenly turn around. Zinn smiled bitterly and said, your second uncle is a typical smiling fox, with a knife hidden in his smile and a sword in his mouth. This time I was negligent. He seized the opportunity to cheat me. After I come back, I will make him pay. Chapter 2241. As the father and son were talking, Zinn's cell phone rang. The screen showed that it was his second brother, Shoude, who was calling. Thinking of Shoude's downfall at a critical moment, Zinn was full of hatred, and his mood would naturally not be good. He directly pressed the speaker and asked in a cold voice, what's the matter? Shoude smiled and said, brother, the car is ready and the plane is ready. It's time to take you to the airport. Zinn gritted his teeth and said coldly, okay, I will say a few words to Zhufei, and I will come down in a while. Shoude hurriedly said, Brother, don't delay any longer, the old man is still waiting for me to report back. What he meant is that you must go as soon as possible, the sooner the better. Zinn could only hold back his anger and said, okay, I'll be there in 5 minutes. Good brother. Shoude smiled. I'll be waiting for you at the door, and I'll take you to the airport in person. Zinn didn't speak anymore and directly hung up the phone. Then he looked at Zhufei and said with profound meaning, be with your mother more these days. If she has anything to do, report to me in time. Zhufei naturally hoped that his parents would be able to reunite, so he nodded very seriously and said, don't worry, Dad, I know. Zinn nodded, stood up, dragged the suitcase, and said, okay, I'm leaving. Zhufei hurriedly asked, Dad, when will you be back? Zinn shook his head and said, it depends on what your grandpa thinks. I don't know when. After that, Zinn waved his hand, don't say anything. Immediately afterward, he took the box and walked out the door. Zhufei hurriedly took the first step, took the box from him, and said, Dad, I'll take you to the airport. Zinn said, no, you must stay here. At this time, in the huge villa courtyard, a Lexus LM commercial vehicle was already waiting in the courtyard. Toyota Alpha itself is already the top commercial vehicle in China. This new Lexus LM is one level higher than Alpha. Shoude stood outside the car door, looking at Zinn who stepped out with a smile on his face. With a few meters away, Shoude hurriedly greeted him and said with a cordial smile, oh, brother, please get in the car, let's set off. Zinn said coldly, I am the one who is leaving, what are you anxious for? Shoude was not angry, and said with a smile, oh, big brother, I am doing this for you. The old man urged me strictly. If you move a little slower, he must be upset again. Zinn was very angry. He wanted to give Shoude a bad face, but he didn't expect that Shoude would use his father as a shield for everything. When he said this, he just shook his face. If he says something bad at this time about the old man, this person will take it directly, a spiced up version at least. In desperation, Zinn could only hold back his anger, and said, since Dad ordered it, then move quickly. After that, he asked the driver to take the suitcase from Zhufei and put it in the back of the commercial vehicle, and said to Zhufei, Zhufei, take care of your mother and your sister. Zhufei hurriedly said, I know Dad, don't worry. Zinn didn't say a word, stepped into the back of the commercial car, waved to Zhufei, motioned him to go back. Shoude smiled and sat beside Zinn, and said to Zhufei, if you are done, go back and rest. I will send your dad on the plane. After speaking, he told the driver, okay, drive quickly. The driver immediately started the car and left. Zhufei was very disappointed when he saw the commercial vehicle leaving the villa yard. Tonight is almost more difficult than the night when he and Jiu were kidnapped. At that time, he and Jiu were only facing danger to their lives. But tonight, he experienced a series of changes such as his father's expose of an illegitimate daughter, his parents' relationship changed, his father lost power instantly was sent to Australia. He was not only worried about his parents' feelings, worried about his father's future but also worried about his own future. Before tonight, my father was the next heir to the entire Su family. And he is naturally the heir to the next generation. However, the changes tonight have changed everything. Father has lost his father's favor and trust. If he loses his power and fails to recover, his future will be gloomy. If I let your second uncle Shoude be the heir, I wouldn't even have a chance. The worried Zhufei returned to his sister's study in despair. At this time, Jiu was still checking the photos of male passengers at the Japanese airport in front of the computer. Seeing Zhufei coming back, Jiu glanced at him and asked a little angrily, what is Dad looking for? Did he make excuses to clean himself up? No. Zhufei sighed, hey, Dad was driven to Australia by Grandpa. What? Jiu blurted out in shock. Dad was driven to Australia. When did this happen? Just now. Zhufei said sadly. Dad packed his luggage and set off. The second uncle took him to the airport. Jiu asked very puzzledly, why did Grandpa drive Dad to Australia? From the beginning to the end, the relationship with Dad is nothing more than Ruoli's relationship with him. Exposing an illegitimate daughter is not a big deal. Grandpa, why is this? Zhufei said, Dad said, Grandpa wants him to take the blame. Ziyu's heart suddenly stunned, and she blurted out, it's awful, awful, this is awful. Dad is going to leave, Grandpa must have all the shit basins on him. After that, Xiu said nervously, I think, Grandpa might declare to the public that the decision to betray Ruoli was made by her dad. That way, he will be able to get rid of the infamy of betraying his granddaughter. Dad is going to be burdened with the black pot of betraying his own daughter. Zhufei said helplessly, there is no other way. Grandpa asked Dad to leave tonight, and Dad can't help but leave. Xiu looked at Zhufei and said seriously, brother. The Su family may be changing the sky now. Zhufei asked, you feel it too? Xiu nodded solemnly and said, brother, I don't care about money or power. Anyway, I'm a girl, and I can't inherit much property, but you are different. It's our dad this time. If you can't stand up again, then you will be over in the future. Zhufei covered his face, and said sadly, but what can I do? I can see that Grandpa is eager to shake the pot now, and the best person to stop that is our dad. Furthermore, the pot of betrayal of his own daughter is too cruel. Once this charge is confirmed to our dad, then in the eyes of outsiders, our dad will have an extremely ruthless image, and the impact must be extremely bad. Just using this point, Grandpa would never let him inherit the position of Su family patriarch. Having said this, Zhufei sighed faintly, oh. In the family, maybe from now on, he won't be able to get up again. Ziyu's beautiful eyebrows wrinkled tightly. She clenched her neat little white teeth, and resolutely said, no. We must help our dad get back the position of an heir. Zhufei blurted out and asked, how to grab it? Xiu said coldly, don't ask first. Tomorrow we will go to Orus Hill with Mom, and stay away from this place of right and wrong for the time being. I have my own way how to help Dad regain all this. After half an hour, a Boeing 747 transformed private jet launched from Eastcliff Airport. This aircraft of the same model as the U.S. Presidential Air Force One, with a typical 3-level cockpit layout, can be fully loaded with up to 467 passengers. But now, on the entire plane, apart from the crew, there is only one passenger, and this passenger is Zinn. The flight distance from Eastcliff to Queensland, Australia is about 9,000 kilometers. It is impossible for ordinary small and medium private planes to fly directly on such long routes. Only a large passenger aircraft such as the 747 with a range of more than 10,000 kilometers can complete a direct flight. At this time, Zinn was very depressed on the plane. Looking outside the window, the brightly lit night view of Eastcliff is getting bullsh. Tier, and his mood is getting heavier. Just less than 20 minutes after the plane took off, someone sent a set of photos to the mailboxes of reporters from major media in Eastcliff. This set of photos was taken from a long-distance sneak shot of Zinn, rushing to the airport, going through security, and boarding the plane. Because it was at night, the photo was a little blurry and there was some noise, but the photographer was just right so that people can recognize the person in the photo at a glance, that is, Zinn. In addition to sending these photos to reporters, the sneak shots also revealed gossip to reporters. The news stated, the truth about Ruoli's incident is that Elder Su did not participate in the whole affair. It was Ruoli's biological father, Zinn, who conspired with the self-defense force to betray Ruoli. The other party also said, the reason why Zinn wants Ruoli to die is that he does not want Ruoli to be exposed as his illegitimate daughter. He wants this secret to fall into the sea forever. The other party even broke a story, saying, after the incident was revealed, Leona, Zinn's original wife, immediately returned to her natal family and unswervingly wanted to divorce Zinn, and Zinn left Eastcliff overnight and went to Australia. In fact, he was afraid that the things that he was behind the scenes would be revealed. That's why he escaped avoiding the limelight overnight and asked his father Chengfeng to stay in Eastcliff to bail him out. The media got this clue and immediately regarded it as explosive news, so they broadcast it in the first place. As soon as the news appeared, it immediately caused a shock of public opinion. Previously, the Japanese National Security Agency said that Chengfeng, the old man of the Su family, betrayed Ruoli. In contrast, to the domestic people, it is Zinn who betrayed Ruoli's, which sounds more credible. The reasons are as follows. The first point is that Ruoli is the illegitimate daughter of Zinn. Zinn wants to defend his reputation, his personal settings, and his marriage. Therefore, he would not want to see Ruoli's identity exposed. Therefore, he killed her. This is the fundamental motive. The second point is that the order to destroy the Matsumoto family to Ruoli in Japan was given by Zinn. This shows that Zinn's methods are extremely cruel and vicious, and can be described as inhumane. Therefore, he wanted to kill her. If you silent the mouth that knows secrets, that's better. The third point is that Zinn must have a ghost in his heart. Otherwise, it is impossible to set off for Australia without hesitation the night after the incident. This run proves that he definitely has a big problem. With the continuous spread of news articles, Zinn immediately became the most inferior person in the hearts of the people across the country. It was he who ordered the killing of dozens of elder and children of the Matsumoto family, it was he who pushed his own daughter into the fire pit with his own hands, and it was he who fled in embarrassment with his tail sandwiched in the first place. As a result, there was a wave of a crusade against Zinn on the internet. It's just that Zinn was still on the plane at this time and didn't know what was happening. Behind him, at the same time, the study of Chengfeng, the father of Su. Shoude graciously took a tablet computer, presented media reports and netizen comments to Chengfeng one by one, and said with a smile, "Dad, in this way, everyone will no longer rely on Ruoli's affairs." The old man's head is up again. Elder Su nodded in satisfaction, and at the same time, he was completely relieved. The older people are, the more they cherish feathers, especially for people like Mr. Su. He was wise for a lifetime, even the goal in life idle in the minds of countless people. Seeing the age when he is about to retire, if Ruoli is really overturned in the gutter, then his fame will not be guaranteed. Therefore, deep down in his heart, he is extremely eager to shake this black pot out, and the cleaner he shakes, the better. It's just that before that, he hadn't figured out what method he should use to completely shake the pot. After that, what he did was exposed by the National Security Agency of Japan, and all they exposed were facts. He couldn't argue with anything, and couldn't refute it at all. However, he really did not expect that the head of his second son, Shoude, was so brilliant. He originally planned to send the eldest son Zinn to Australia first, and then give the eldest son Zinn all the matter of destroying the Matsumoto family. As for uniting with the self-defense forces to betray Ruoli, the old man himself did not expect that he would really get out. However, what Shoude did is really beautiful. He had someone secretly took photos of Zinn boarding the plane and then sent an anonymous manuscript to the media. Immediately afterward, he successfully dumped all the black pots on Zinn. His trick is to be regarded as a textbook level. Among them, the clue chain is clear and the story logic is complete. Although most of them are fabricated, they appear to be justified and convincing. Elder Su was very happy. After that, his fame was finally completely preserved, which was more important than anything else. He didn't want to end up with infamy at his age and be cast aside by others after his death. So now he is really happy and relaxed. However, he was not good to praise Shoude directly, so he said with some emotion, "Hey. In this matter, I wronged and needed to be defended." Upon hearing this, Shoude hurriedly sighed. "Yes, Dad, brother made terrible mistakes in this matter." As he said that, he turned around and said seriously, "Dad. But then again, we Su family, anyone can lose face, but you can't. Your old man is the mainstay of the Su family, the backbone of the 7 brothers and sisters, and the grandfather emperor who has inherited the genealogy in the hearts of all the descendants of the Su family. You must never leave a stain like Ruoli in your life. Quote, so, for the sake of your fame, for your glorious image, eldest brother will share the worries for you, that is also right." Shoude's words directly touched Chengfeng's heart. He could no longer hold back the joy deep in his heart immediately. While stroking his beard, he smiled and said, "Shoude, you are right. You made a great contribution to this matter today, and I will do it for you in my heart. Write it down." The news about Zinn suddenly dominated all the media headlines. Xiao and Zhufei were very angry about this. Zhufei even went to his grandfather several times to question the cause, but Xiao stopped him. Xiao knew very well that it was Grandpa, deliberately trying to protect himself and sacrifice his dad, so going to confront him now would only make him angry. Instead of this, it's better not to say a word honestly and even go to Orus Hill with Mother as planned early tomorrow morning. As for how to help Dad come back, Xiao had her own plan in mind. It's just that now she has to wait patiently for the opportunity. At the same time, the He family evacuated all the masters in the Su family overnight. The patriarch Luther He, Ruoli's grandfather, directly ordered internally that the children of the He family must not do anything for the Su family until the Su family gave a clear explanation. At the same time, he also called Chengfeng and asked the Su family to give him a clear explanation. Chengfeng promised, but in reality, he didn't pay attention to him at all. At the moment he just wants to keep his reputation. As for whether Luther will turn his face with him, he doesn't care at all. After all, after his cooperation with the self-defense forces was exposed, he knew that no matter if this matter was carried out by himself or Zinn, the He family could no longer serve the Su family. That being the case, why continue to waste energy on the He family? This night, Ruoli, who was under residential surveillance at the Isik Hotel, did not know what was happening outside. She was lying on the soft and luxurious big bed in the hotel, tossing and turning, and everything in her mind was Charlie's figure. She couldn't figure out why this man had such a strong strength. Even more, can't figure out why this man saved her life. After that, I rushed to kill him at the time. Instead of retaliating against me, he saved my life. Is this what people mean to retaliate with virtue? Thinking about it, that man is really extraordinary. Early the next morning, a private jet landed in the peaceful ancient city of Orus Hill. This plane is the private plane of Renal, the son of Du's family. Leona did not want to take the Su family's plane anymore, so her eldest brother Renal sent her his own plane. After the plane stopped, Leona, who was nervous, walked down the spiral staircase, accompanied by a pair of children. In her heart, she has been thinking about Orus Hill for nearly 20 years. For 20 years, she would sleep with Changying's name silently every day. When she thought of Changying, she couldn't help thinking of Orus Hill. Changying is the love of her life. Back then, Changying died in Orus Hill, but now she finally has the opportunity to come to cherish her memory, and it is naturally difficult to calm down in her heart. As soon as a family of 3 arrived at the arrival hall of the airport, a middle-aged man respectfully greeted her and said, "Miss, you must be exhausted." It was an old housekeeper from the Du family in Orus Hill. Leona met him when he was still young. In the past 2 decades, the old housekeeper has been taking care of the old house in Orus Hill. Leona also married the Su family, so the two have never met again. However, Leona recognized him at a glance, and said respectfully, "Uncle White, long time." After finishing speaking, she hurriedly instructed the pair of children next to her, Jufei, Zie, "Hurry up and meet Grandpa White." Jufei and Jiu hurriedly said respectfully, "Hello, Grandpa White." The old butler hurriedly bowed to thank her, and then flattered Leona said, "I didn't expect the second lady to remember me." Leona smiled and said, "Why won't I remember, you used to be in charge of the house next to Prince Gong's mansion in Eastcliff. Later, after the father donated the house to the National Museum, you came to Orus Hill." The old butler nodded repeatedly and said with emotion, "After I came to Orus Hill, I went back to Eastcliff twice a year to report to my master, but every time I went in a hurry, I hurried back after the report, so I never saw you again." Quote. As he said, he couldn't help sighing. "Oh, the second lady, you haven't been to Orus Hill for more than 20 years, right? I remember that before you got married, you would come to visit the old lady every year, and then you didn't come back much." Quote. Leona nodded and said, "I haven't been here since Changying passed away in Orus Hill." The old housekeeper was startled when he heard the words, and he couldn't help but sighed. "You said young Master Changying was such as talent." Leona asked him, "By the way, Uncle White, you were in Orus Hill before Changying's accident. Do you know anything about that year?" The old housekeeper said with a grimace, "When Mr. Changying came to Orus Hill, the master told me that he said that Mr. Changying was coming. Maybe there was some conflict with his family, plus the Eastcliff side. He was under a lot of pressure, so he came to Orus Hill to relax. He asked me to find Mr. Changying, invited his family of 3 to live in the old house for a few days, and asked me to tell Mr. Changying that if he wanted, their family of 3 could stay in the old house, treat the old house as your own home." Leona asked quickly, "Then what then? Did they come here?" The old butler shook his head and said, "Young Master Changying came here by himself, but he just visited and asked me to thank him, but he didn't agree to stay." Leona asked again, "Then did he say anything?" The old butler thought for a moment and said, At that time, young Master Changying said that he also encountered something and did not want to cause trouble to the Du family, so he thanked him and left. Leona nodded in a sense of disappointment, with melancholy for a while. At this time, the old butler was busy and said again, "By the way, miss, let's stop talking here. The car is waiting outside. Let's go home first." Leona nodded and said, "Okay Uncle White, let's go home first." Outside the airport, 3 cars are parked side by side. Leona said to Jufei and Jiu, "Jufei, Jiu, sit in the back car, I'll sit in the middle car, and chat with your grandfather White by the way." The brothers and sisters naturally agreed to come down and board the last red flag. The old housekeeper opened the back row of the red flag car in the middle for Leona, and after Leona got in, he got into the co-pilot. As the convoy left the airport, Leona asked the old butler, "Uncle White, I want to ask you something." The old butler hurriedly said, "Second miss, just ask." Leona said, "Uncle White, I heard people say that Changying came to Orus Hill with his wife and children. Since he didn't want to live in our old house, where did he live in the end?" The old housekeeper explained, "Young Master Changying also likes the old mansion very much. At that time, he asked me to help him find it, so I asked a friend to find him a slightly remote old mansion. The house used to be the mansion of a great military ruler, but after escaping, it was handed over to others to take care of. After a long time, the house was abandoned. But Mr. Changying liked it very much, so he rented it and renovated it himself." Leona suddenly said with excitement, "Uncle White, can you take me to see it?" At this time, Charlie, just pushing his electric bike, came out of the gate of Thompson's villa. Claire's company has ended the spring festival holiday and officially went to work, and his father-in-law Jacob has also begun to reinvest in the affairs of the Calligraphy and Painting Association. In the morning, Elaine, who was on crutches, made breakfast. After Jacob and Claire finished their meal, they drove a BMW to their business. Charlie cleaned the house and prepared to go out to buy some meat and eggs. The small vegetable garden at home can provide the vegetables and fruits that most families need, but meat and eggs are still available at the vegetable market. Charlie rode out and did not rush to set off. Instead, he parked the car on the side of the road. In the Thompson Villa area, resting his feet on the ground, and took out his mobile phone to call Isik. Charlie read all the scandals that broke out in the Su family last night. The direction of public opinion condemned Changfeng from the beginning and then turned the spearhead to direct Zinn. Charlie could tell at a glance that this was Changfeng's self-protection trick. It seems that there are already conflicts in the Su family now, which is very exciting good news for Charlie. Although he is still not sure whether the murderer of his parents was the Su family, he must make the Su family pay a huge price because of the fact that the Su family had formed an anti-Leaf alliance. Now that the Su family began to disintegrate internally, for him, it was naturally an excellent situation. Next, how to make the Su family disintegrate more thoroughly and make the Su family go bulsh. There and bulsh. There on the road of unrest is what Charlie is most concerned about right now. In his view, Ruoli is definitely a nuclear weapon that can further disintegrate the Su family. As soon as the phone call to Isik was answered, he asked, "Mr. Isik, how are Ruoli and the others now?" Isik hurriedly said, "Back to the young master, I just sent someone breakfast. According to the food delivery person, they are all in good condition." Charlie asked again, after breaking their connection with the outside world, they didn't have any awkwardness, did they? No. Isik laughed, the crew members are still afraid that others will know that they are back. Even if they give them a mobile phone, they dare not call outside. Charlie asked, "What about Ruoli? How is the state?" Isik said, "According to her subordinates, she has nothing to be dissatisfied with, but she asked about you." Charlie asked curiously, "Oh. What did she ask about me?" Isik smiled and said, "She asks when you will be there, and she wants to discuss something with you." Yeah. Charlie checked the time. It is only 9:30 in the morning. As long as he can buy the meat and come back at 11, he won't delay Elaine cooking lunch, so he said, "Well, let me go by in a while." "Okay young master." Isik said respectfully, "Should I drive to pick you up?" "No, I'll ride a battery car, it's easy." Charlie didn't actually have a good impression of Ruoli. Although this woman is very beautiful and has a very hot body, her heart is also very vicious. If he hadn't guessed it by himself, she was the illegitimate daughter of Zinn, and he would never save her life. She was kept alive just to make the Su family sick. After that, it is very easy to kill a general of the Su family, but it is not so easy to create a deadly enemy for the Su family. If you can let Ruoli, like yourself, treat the Su family as enemies, it will definitely add a lot of trouble in the future. This is Charlie's purpose for keeping Ruoli alive. He planned to send Ruoli back to Eastcliff when the time was right. Immediately, he put away the phone, turned the accelerator of the battery car, the little machine made a buzzing sound, and quickly rushed out. After leaving the Thompson community, Charlie turned right by bicycle and was about to go to Isaac's hotel. He heard a familiar voice behind him shouting with some nervousness, "Brother-in-law." Charlie turned his head subconsciously and saw a familiar woman beckoning to him on the sidewalk behind him. Wendy. Charlie was very puzzled when he saw the woman clearly. It's not a day or two since my family and Mrs. Wilson's family turned their faces. For so long, the family has been in the same situation. Not to mention that they will not say hello when you meet. If the mother-in-law Elaine sees her family on the terrace of the villa, she couldn't wait to scold him for an hour to relieve her hatred. So, he didn't quite understand, what did Wendy mean? Moreover, why is she willing to call him brother-in-law? Didn't she call him trash before? Thinking of this, he frowned and asked, "Are you okay?" Wendy hurried 2 steps to Charlie, and said with a bit of shame, "Brother-in-law, why are you going there?" Charlie said coldly, "I'm going to buy vegetables." "Why?" Wendy bit her lip lightly, and asked anxiously, "Brother-in-law, can you take me to the Pearl River Regency? It's not far from here. An electric bike can be there in 20 minutes. Charlie looked at her up and down, and saw that she was dressed very formally, with light makeup, and said with a sneer, "You dignified Miss Wilson, riding on my electric bike is too cheap." "Why? Why?" "Same, then I will start to rinse the car first." Wendy immediately lowered her head ashamed, when she heard this. At this moment, what she thought of was the situation when she was sitting in Gerald White's Bentley car when she saw Charlie downstairs in the Embrand group. At that time, Charlie rode this electric bike. At that time, she didn't put Charlie in her eyes at all. She always felt that he was a complete worthless man, so she really didn't look down on him with half eyeballs even. But, who could have imagined that today, more than half a year later, Charlie became the master of Orus Hill, but she was reduced to being a courtesy lady who wanted to support the family for 200 yuan a day. Moreover, in order to save some money to feed her grandma, dad, and brother, she was even reluctant to take the bus or take a taxi. Thinking of this, she plucked up the courage and said in a very humble manner, "Brother-in-law, don't make fun of me. Our family is in such a downturn now. I am still a little miss of Wilson family." After finishing speaking, she raised her head and looked at Charlie with red eyes, and said guiltily, "Brother-in-law, the previous things were all my bad and I was wrong. I shouldn't have looked down on you. I shouldn't have put the fight against you and Claire everywhere. Life has taught me too many lessons. I am also deeply aware of my mistakes. I hope that you can live without regard to the villains and stop following me with the negative memories from the past." When Wendy said this, Charlie was somewhat surprised. He really didn't expect Wendy to say such a thing. What he didn't expect was that when Wendy said this, her tone and attitude were very sincere. He could see that Wendy's words were from the bottom of the heart, not just talking. Seeing Wendy sincerely apologized and realizing that she was wrong, Charlie's attitude eased a little, and said lightly, "Knowing that a mistake can be corrected, there is no way better to be good. If you really realize that you did a mistake in the first place, it is not too late to wake up now." Quote. Hearing what Charlie said, Wendy nodded in a hurry, even her voice choked up, and said seriously, "Brother-in-law, you are right. I am awake now. I am no longer the old lady who had a high-level eye, unlearned, and a dog-eyed little girl." Then, she opened the zipper of the down jacket a little bit, revealing the blue etiquette uniform inside, and said, "Brother-in-law, look, I have started doing a job by myself now, and I will be a welcome guest in the newly opened Redwoods community." Charlie asked curiously, "How did you become a welcoming guest? If I remember correctly, you are a college student anyway, isn't it better to find any job than to be a welcoming guest?" Wendy whispered in a very ashamed voice, "This, brother-in-law, to tell you, my dad and my elder brother were beaten to be useless people because of their plot against my second aunt. Now I can only lie in bed and can't do anything. My grandmother is too old and lost weight. The stimulation of my second aunt has not been relieved, so I can't go out to find a job. I can only make money to support a family. Speaking of this, Wendy sobbed a few times and choked. But I can't find those good jobs, because such jobs pay a month later. But my dad, my brother and my grandma, the three of them are still waiting at home. I will make money and go back to fill their stomachs. So I can only find a job like this that can pay me daily. Charlie nodded lightly. When she and her old husband went to the supermarket to make purchases a year ago, he saw Mrs. Wilson who helped customers pull plastic bags in the supermarket. At that time he knew that the Wilson family was exhausted. In the past, they leaned on Ragnar, and they could be considered well off. But later Noah Wilson and Harold got into a catastrophe and tied Cynthia and Elaine together, and Ragnar also completely offended Cynthia. In the end, Ragnar learned of his identity as the young master of the Wade family, so he could only kneel to him and seek a way to survive. Now that Ragnar has become Orville's licking dog, it is naturally impossible to give the Wilson family any chance. Had it not been for that, he still wanted to leave the Wilson family one last escape. The Wilson family would have been swept out by Ragnar. However, Charlie didn't feel sorry for them if he left this back path for them. He felt that since ancient times, the sages have concluded that the wicked have their own truths. Therefore, instead of letting them get out of Thompson, it is better to let them feel the deep water in Thompson. Therefore, Ragnar only looked for a relationship and released Gina Jones and the others in advance. Charlie had already figured out Mrs. Wilson clearly. He knew that if Mrs. Wilson saw Gina and the three of them want to live in a villa with him, she would do everything possible to drive Gina away. This would offend Gina to death, as predicted. Originally, Gina and the three were still grateful to Mrs. Wilson. If Mrs. Wilson treated them well, they would definitely go all out to give back the favor to Mrs. Wilson. In that case, with the help of three big and haughty village women, Mrs. Wilson's family can at least have enough to eat. However, Charlie just determined that Mrs. Wilson would not choose this path. Therefore, he deliberately let old lady Wilson experience the feeling of shooting herself in the foot. The original help turned into an enemy, which definitely make old lady Wilson miserable. And Mrs. Wilson did not disappoint him. Now, it is obvious that Mrs. Wilson has been struggling to feed a family of 4 alone, so Wendy can only carry the burden of supporting it. Charlie looked at Wendy in front of him. Although his impression of her was slightly changed, he did not sympathize with her. Immediately, he spoke faintly. Redwoods is not far from here. If you take a car, the starting price is almost the same. Wendy hurriedly said, "Brother-in-law, I can't think to split my money in half now. I can't bear to take the bus, let alone take a taxi." As she said, she pointed to the high heels under her feet and said, "I was going to walk straight over, so that I can save some money. I just saw you passing by here, so I mustered up the courage to apologize to you. By the way, can you give me a ride?" In fact, Wendy now has a good impression of Charlie. Since the day before the Chinese New Year, when many big figures in Orus Hill came to pay Charlie New Year's greetings, she realized that she had made a huge mistake when she looked down on Charlie. She also realized that the current Charlie is no longer comparable to the old Charlie. Moreover, he has always been very good at Claire, and Wendy also sees it. Therefore, her current view of Charlie has changed drastically from before. When she came out today, she just saw Charlie riding a bike passing by, so she mustered up the courage to call him. But Charlie really couldn't give Wendy a good impression, so he said, "I still have something to do. I can't take you there. I am not going along with the Pearl River Woods." Although Wendy felt lost in her heart, she did not continue to entangle her. She nodded very refreshingly and said, "Brother-in-law, it's okay, if you have anything to do, please do it first. I'll just go over myself." Seeing that she was still wearing high heels, she couldn't get there in less than 40 minutes. He felt a little sympathetic, so he said, "Well, let's add a PayPal account, and I will transfer some money to you." Quote, Wendy subconsciously said, "No need, brother-in-law. I can't ask for your money." Charlie said calmly, "You just call me brother-in-law. Sincerely, I should help you, not to mention that you met me, and if you meet your sister, she will definitely help you too. Claire has always been kind and doesn't like to hold grudges. If she was shown the appearance of Wendy, she would definitely help. When Wendy heard this, she was touched and ashamed, and choked up, "Brother-in-law, I used to be so cruel to you, you are still willing to help me." I am. Quote. Speaking of this, Wendy couldn't help crying. Today, she really understood what it means to repay grievances with virtue. Like others, she has offended others before, so it is easier for him to pay her back with the same coin. However, instead of ridiculing and mocking her, Charlie was willing to help, which really surprised her. Charlie said at this time, "Okay, don't cry, don't shirk, hurry up and add a PayPal, I have something to take care of, I have to go." Wendy was so busy that she nodded her head again and again, but when she reached into her pocket, she realized that she didn't have a mobile phone. Her mobile phone was taken away by Regnar's people a long time ago. So, she said nervously, "Brother-in-law, I don't have a mobile phone."